President Cyril Ramaphosa has concluded his working visit to Egypt with a call for a concerted effort to revive the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. The president travelled to Egypt to attend the Cairo Peace Summit. Ramaphosa's visit was at the invitation of President of Egypt, His Excellency Abdel Fattah El-Sisi. In his plea to the international community, President Ramaphosa called for more energy and focus to be directed at supporting the resumption of the peace process. He urged influential countries like the United States to fulfill their duty and responsibility to support processes that will deliver a long-lasting and durable peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians. He warned of further that the international community cannot afford to squander the opportunity that has been presented by the current conflict to decisively push for a two-state solution. President Ramaphosa decried the escalation of the conflict by those arming either of the warring parties and called on state actors to immediately stop the provision of weapons as it undermines the process of peace. Meanwhile, the EFF leader Julius Malema will lead a picket to the Israeli embassy in solidarity with the people of Palestine on Monday. The party says it is time for the entire globe to realize that the human rights crisis in Palestine has reached the point of genocide and ethnic cleansing. Hundreds of EFF supporters are expected to converge on the Israeli embassy in Pretoria, calling for cessation of hostilities in the Middle East. Thousands of people have been killed since the war broke out 2 weeks ago. President Ramaphosa also joined leaders, as we mentioned, foreign ministers from more than 20 countries, most of them Arab and European, in Egypt, to discuss the Gaza crisis. Some in South Africa are calling for the closure of the Israeli embassy. We join now by Professor Laeed Zaghlami from the University of Algiers. I hope I'm pronouncing your name and surname correctly, Professor. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. Just your thoughts on the fact that the Cairo Peace Summit has ended without a declaration.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for having me on your program. You indeed pronounced correctly my name. I think the summit in Cairo ended with mixed results. From the Algerian point of view, for instance, as Algerian president didn't attend for the only reason he knew beforehand that there would be firm support of the resistance in Palestine. As a matter of fact, the Egyptian President Sisi, in his speech, he focused more on the President of Authority of Palestine, Mahmoud Abbas, ignoring completely what the militant of Hamas have done. And this is a distortion of the truth. More than that, he wants that Mahmoud Abbas, who is 88 years old, will be a key player in the new process of peace, ignoring completely what has been done by, as I said, the resistance. Although, of course, we appreciate, on the other hand, the firm position of the president of Egypt, who stand for the solution of two states. More than that, he didn't succumb to the plan orchestrated by USA and Israel to displace Palestinians from Gaza to the Sahara of Sinai in Egypt. This is a very good point for him, which attracted an avalanche of criticism from the press in USA today. For instance, so many newspapers in USA are really describing President Egypt as a dictator who is following the path of Gamal Abdel Nasser, nationalist president in the 1960s.
And as you say, there seem to be disparate positions, namely if you look at what the Arab countries are saying and what the European countries are saying. They're coming from different points of view. The Arab League leaders are focusing on the displacement and the continued bombardment, while the Europeans are talking about a safe passage for aid and other humanitarian efforts. The displacement seems to be a major source of contention, and even the wording around it. You'd recall that at the beginning, Israeli military officials were telling people to leave for their own safety. But those who've been looking at the situation unfold have been lamenting the fact that already you have 7 million or more Palestinians who are already living outside of their birthland.
Exactly, you put it rightly. And of course, once again, Israeli authorities want to wipe out the presence of Palestinians in Gaza Strip. And what they want that they will be displaced either to Jordan or to Egypt. But firmly, Egyptian president as well as the kingdom of Jordan opposed to this solution. They say we won't accept in any case. And of course, right now, what is happening, Israel is continuing bombarding Gaza. And that is to say, they won't accept any solution in peaceful solution. In other words, Israel is not, I would say, committed to accepting any result, any cause for solution from all leaders who have attended the Cairo Summit. And I listened to President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, calling for a peaceful solution. But as I said again and again, Israel is reluctant to this solution, is getting a stubborn position. They won't accept any. They are carrying on their bombardment regardless of any casualty, whether for I would say kids or boys or girls or elderly. So this is exactly the reality. Of course, we understand now from the outcome of the I would say Cairo Summit. We understand now that Israel does not bother about the outcome. They have their own plan, is to carry on invading Gaza in order to displace people regardless of international law. More than that, today, for instance, they continue to bombard and they continue to oppose any humanitarian aid. They are doing it like drops in the ocean. Just about 20 caravans have passed yesterday, while the need is over 2,000 daily. So in other words, Israel is practicing a policy of hunger and of despair for the people in Palestine.
But just going forward, Professor, if there is going to be some sort of consensus, as we saw what happened at the UN Security Council, the position taken by the United States saying that it does not believe the conditions exist, yes, to pen down something that everybody can coalesce around. But if multilateralism is to work, you spoke earlier on about the position of Abu Mazen and Palestinian leadership. But when we talk about Palestinian rights, when we talk about peace, particularly for Gaza, what would such a statement then have said were coming out of the Cairo Summit be successful?
Yes, the Cairo Summit outcome asked clearly and overtly for the solution of two states. More than that, they asked that Israel military should stop, of course, bombarding Gaza, as well as not hurting people, especially kids and boys. More than that, they should allow humanitarian aid coming from Rafah border to come in. So all these calls have not been observed by Israel, and of course it's clear that Israel will not, as I just heard from Prime Minister Netanyahu, he says he is determined to wipe out a Palestinian presence in Gaza, but beforehand he is now negotiating the release of all hostages. So they are having, for Israel, they're having time. They are waiting until the release of hostages, but this will not happen like that. I think there is a problem from Israel. They still wait for because they have, I would say, full support from USA. That's why they are continuing to violate the international rules. I mean, they don't care about all those who attended the Cairo Summit, whether, of course, leaders from the whole world. But it looks as what is happening now in Gaza is a war between the West, which is supporting Israel, and the rest of the world, which is, of course, expressing sympathy to the rights of Palestine. They deserve to have their own state because they cannot displace from their own country. How on earth, as you mentioned, they have already suffered. Diaspora are living outside for many 1948 now to almost 75 years. They have been ousted from their own country, and while the solution is a peaceful one, a civilized one, a democratic one, should be a two-state, one Israeli and Palestinian living together in peaceful.
I need to ask a final question, and if you could please be brief on this. Was there any legitimate hope that Israel and the United States would see anything coming out of the Cairo Summit as implementable, relevant solutions?
I tell you, as I said already, the plan between Israel and USA are to convince President Sisi to accept the displacement of Palestinians to the Sinai Sahara of Egypt, because he refused and he declined this invitation. Now, USA newspaper and the press are criticizing, are insulting President Sisi of being dictator. So, in other words, because behind the scenes, USA and Israel planned the displacement, but this plan was rejected by the whole participant. So what I would say now, we want to have Palestine. We want to have I would say USA coming the good sentiment to accept that there is no solution of wiping out the people from their own home ground. And the solution should be to accept the principle of two states. I would say I am very optimistic because there is growing protest within the Israeli society. They are criticizing Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, for being racist, for being supremacist, for rejecting all political solution, and this won't happen. So we will accept maybe an uprising within. We have already seen the uprising within the Israeli society. Okay. So in other words, I would say there will be more pressure on Israeli Prime Minister to refrain from bombarding, from invading Gaza. More than that, the resistance of the Palestinian resistance continued to resist, and they just today killed one soldier who tried to come into Gaza. In other words, nothing has changed, but I'm confident that there is this situation of deadlock should be a warning for all countries who are not supporting the real state or the real solution of two states.
We have unfortunately run out of time, but I do thank you for taking a minute or two to speak to us, Professor Laeed Zaghlami from the University of Algiers. We're going to take a quick break. We are back with more news here on The Late Edition.